Welcome to heCast, the official podcast of HeChangedIt. My name is Mike Chisholm. As always, I am here to have an amazing conversation with an amazing guest about mental wellness, in particularly men's mental wellness, but also and how that translates with the world and what's going on in the world right now. It's my favorite time of the week. I'm always excited to be here. If you haven't downloaded HeChangedIt, what the heck are you waiting for? Go to one of the app stores right now, Google, iOS, download HeChangedIt, jump in, become part of the community, and take part. Check out some of the resources that we have. We're really excited for what we've built so far, and you ain't seen nothing yet. This app is going places, and this community, this movement that we have is going places. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, again, what the heck are you waiting for? Subscribe. Please share us. Let's get this thing moving and blowing up, and please, please, please be a part of that. I said this was my favorite time of the week. It is. I love having these conversations. I've said many times, and I'll say it again, I'm the luckiest guy to be part of in the HeChangedIt world, because I get to be front seat to all of these conversations with amazing people doing amazing things. Today is definitely going to show that, because the guests that I have here, you know, I have a description that I give to certain people in my life that either come into contact with me or I view from afar, that I reserve for certain people. And that description is called a force of nature. This gal that we're going to talk to today is a force of nature. She's a mother. She's a grandmother, but she is also an advocate. And it's an advocate on a tough subject. You know, we're going to talk about some stuff today that is, it's not easy to talk about necessarily, but it is needed to be talked about in the society that we live. We live in a society that a lot of people, when it comes to the subject of drug use, there's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of ignorance. There's a lot of facts that get lost within that ignorance. And at the end of the day, we've got victims of drug use and drug misuse, and the families that are affected because of that. It's staggering how emotional this topic is, but it's one that we need to talk about more. The solution is not being an ostrich and putting our head into the sand with less words. The solution is more words. We need more words to talk about this, to find solutions so we can move past this very difficult growing pain in our culture, which is drug use. And we're going to talk to a gal by the name of Helen Jennens. And Helen is a force of nature. Helen, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be part of heCast.
Well, thanks for having me.
It is my honor. It's our honor to have you here. A few weeks back, we did a podcast with a guy by the name of Ben Garner. He is part of an organization called Mom Stop the Harm. And we didn't go very far down the path, or Ben Garner, I should say. We didn't go too far down the path about what Mom Stop the Harm is. We're going to get into that today. You became part of that organization after some pretty horrific events happened in your life. Events that affected you not just emotionally, but they also affected you into action. You've lost 2 sons due to drug use. Mm-hmm. Or drug misuse. And I can't even imagine what that would be like as a mother to go through something like that. You have a story that has taken place in your life that has, again, driven you to action. And let's get into that a little bit, and then we'll get into what Mom Stop the Harm is, and we'll get into, I'm a big fan of the idea that you know, the average person in the world focuses on the problem when the champion focuses on the solution. And you have taken a really big problem and you have moved over and focused on the solution. Is that would that be an accurate statement?
Yeah, it's, you know, the number of people dying to drug poisonings is really devastating. And I lived two of those deaths with the biggest parts of my life, my sons, Ryan and Tyler. And I just, you know, it was kind of like a aha moment. How are we going to stop this? Like this is insane. All these kids dying, really of a preventable death. And we don't even call it overdose anymore.
I was going to say, you just said died of a drug poisoning.
Yeah, we're calling it poisoning now.
And that really changes, in my mind, it changes the connotation. When I hear a drug poisoning, that to me changes how I look at a situation compared to the education that I was given growing up and the rhetoric that has been kind of implanted into my head. A poisoning is very different than an overdose, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So an overdose is if someone was using heroin and they used too much heroin and they overdosed and died.
Right.
But what's happening because of this toxic drug market, and certainly was the case with my son, Tyler, who used heroin. He thought he purchased heroin and it was 100% fentanyl. So, as far as I'm concerned, the dealer could have walked in the room and shot him between the eyes because, fairly, why did the dealer not say to him, go easy on this or, warn him? Or he thought it was fair. It was heroin. He used the same amount as he would have if it was heroin, and it killed him. That's a poisoning.
Right.
That's like going into a supermarket and buying a thing of sugar and getting home and it not being sugar, it being cyanide. Yes. And you die. That's a poisoning. So that's what the toxic market has done. I don't think you can even find real heroin on the streets anymore. It's all a combination of crap that these so-called chemists are making in their basement.
Right.
So I just, I really felt the need to join in, with the gals I met from Mom Stop the Harm to put an end to the failed war on drugs because it's been a failed war.
So now you joined up with the gals from Mom Stop the Harm. And we'll get to them in a minute here, but that was in 2016, right?
Right.
But you had already been kind of a warrior on your own with your own sword and your own shield, advocating for this since 2012?
Yes. My oldest son died of a combined overdose, and it was prescription medication. And
that was Ryan?
Yeah, Ryan.
Yeah.
He died in 2011. He was 37, and I found him in his home the next morning. And I didn't have any idea what kind of medication he was on. He'd been in a terrible accident and legitimately needed pain meds. But it was just the combination of meds and the amount of meds he had. And
how long ago was he in the, like it was 2011. When was the accident?
2008.
Okay. So for 3 years.
Yeah, for 3 years. So
okay.
The medication list had been building over that 3 years. With every drug, with every medication, there's a side effect. And for every side effect, they give you another medication. So you end up taking 2 or 3 things and eventually you're on 10 or 11 or 12.
That's where the word cocktail comes from, right? It's a mixture.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I didn't know what drugs he was taking. So the first thing I did was inquired with Pharma. I asked for his records and I was just shocked. And then I started to investigate the use of Pharma and what exactly was its purpose. And its purpose is to identify a bad combination of drugs that could be lethal. And the doctor should be looking at Pharma and know that. But the pharmacist, who's kind of the last guy standing between you and a harmful mixture of medications, he's looking at Pharma and he's saying, well, you shouldn't be taking this with this. Or so, yeah, I was doing a big, I think it was Go Public. CBC was my first interview. And then I did a big piece with Canadian Press on Pharma and the lack of use and how I want it to become, one of the first places we go.
Well, it's literally supposed to be a net. It's supposed to be that automatic system that catches this kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you
Mm-hmm.
throw everything into the Pharma net and then automatically it says, oh, no, can't have this one with this one with this one. That seems like it would be a pretty simple thing in theory if you have it, whether it's at the doctor's level or at the pharmacist level or both for that matter. You would think that if that system is working properly, it would be a real a beneficial tool.
Totally. The pharmacists are always looking at it because they use PharmaNet to dispense drugs. But the doctors, it isn't mandatory that the doctors use it, although they're encouraging it in walk-ins. And I think they pretty much use it all the time in the emergency wards now.
Yeah.
But a little scenario I can give you is my second son, who was in heroin addiction, was in drug-seeking behavior. You know, when he couldn't get heroin, or his symptoms of withdrawal or had, gotten so bad, he would go to different doctors and ask for different prescriptions of things. Usually the benzodiazepines,
Okay.
Valium, clonazepam.
And these are all opioids?
No, those
They're not.
Benzodiazepines are different than opioids.
Okay.
But Valium, it has a calming effect.
Right.
And it soothes some of the. So the last Dr. Tyler ever saw was 2 days before he died, and it was a walk-in physician he'd never ever met before, and the walk-in physician gave him a prescription for 180 Ativan. If he had looked at Tyler's PharmaNet records, he would have seen the history of drug-seeking behavior, and maybe compassionately, he would have given him half a dozen to get him through the night until he could get to a doctor. But giving him 180, I actually think Tyler traded some of those Ativan for the drugs that killed him.
Okay. I'm gonna go high level here for a second, and you've alluded to it already, but you've got two boys that you've lost to drug misuse, drug poisoning, and it's horribly fascinating in the fact that you've had one who on the illegal side using heroin and things, but then the other one is the one that we keep hearing about in the news, misuse of prescription drugs. And it's interesting, two very different scenarios,
Right?
Sort of, but at the same time, I can see why this would have made you want to advocate to say the whole fucking system is broken, because there's a wide breadth of how people can get caught in that trap, and you've seen it from both sides, and your vantage point must be it must be unique with other advocates, because you'd think most would be either one or the other,
Well, so Tyler, his addiction started after he ruptured his Achilles and he had surgery, and they prescribed Oxycontin.
Okay. And Oxycontin and heroin are very similar, right? One's just prescribed, and it's a prescription med.
Yep.
And heroin is more a recreational drug, but they've got similar makeups genetically or chemically, I should say.
Yeah. So he developed a dependency on opioids when he was on the Oxycontin.
Okay.
Of course, doctors stop giving you that kind of stuff. You go to the street and you try and buy it. And Oxycontin on the street, when you still could get it, was very expensive. And heroin is dirt cheap. So he moved from Oxycontin to heroin.
That is I think, and I'll just be flat out here. I've never really experimented with any hard drugs. I've some pot and some mushrooms here and there and whatnot, but moving from a pill to I'm going to inject that behavior right there. That shows right there. There's warning signs going on there. Did you have any warning signs for either of your boys that this was something that was affecting them, that they were into?
Oh, well, Ryan was diagnosed with ADHD when he was 13. And that was back in 1987, and given Ritalin, which he hated taking. And ADHD causes all sorts of, things going on for a kid that make school difficult.
Yeah.
They end up with social anxiety. You know, they just don't feel they measure up. They're kind of losers. So he started self-medicating with alcohol and then drugs at that age.
Oh, wow.
But the drugs back then were real drugs. You know, we didn't have this toxic drug market. Anyways, when he was about 26, he finally got into recovery, and he had 8 years of abstinence before he got hit by that truck.
Okay.
So the addiction was he already had that.
That behavior
history.
mechanism was there.
Yeah, it was there. He was set up. So the perfect storm was, you know, his leg was crushed from his hip to his ankle. He had 4 surgeries. Trying to put his ankle back together. He was waiting for a knee replacement. He'd had a hip replacement, and they had to do another one. He was never going to walk without a cane, or, you know, he legitimately needed drugs for pain.
Yeah.
So, but that just...
it went off the track. It went off the rails.
Well, he didn't misuse his prescription medication. He took it the way it was prescribed to him.
Yes.
But the combination of benzodiazepines and narcotics will cause respiratory failure, depression, and he died. He was sitting on his bed with his laptop on his lap, and he fell asleep, and he never woke up. And that's how I found him, sitting on his bed with his laptop open on his lap.
Wow.
So, you know, very different scenario from his brother Tyler, who was using street drugs.
Yeah.
And thought he had purchased heroin, which was 100% fentanyl. And no one ever really told me how quickly it killed him, but I would have said minutes. He was dead.
How long after he passed did you say, okay, we need to change some things here, and I'm going to start becoming a crusader to do this?
Well, I was pretty pissed off generally. So I was really local about, first it's anger and revenge, and I wanted them to go after the dealers and the suppliers and the assholes that were making this shit and selling it to unsuspecting people. And, I wasn't getting much support from the police because, you take out one of these low-level dealers and there's 3 to come in and take their place. So, it's kind of a rat race of a never-ending. So I started off very agitated and vengeful, and I wanted this dealer caught, and we had all the information in his phone, and
essentially following the rhetoric that we've been programmed with for the last 30 years. So
I was in the media fairly quickly after Tyler had passed away. He was one of the first acknowledged fentanyl poisonings in Kelowna. It had been happening, but he was probably the first public. So then somebody heard me or read something, and somebody from Mom Stop the Harm, they called me, explained who they were, what they were doing, and it was a perfect fit for me.
Okay, and I want to talk about the education that they gave you. I'm not just the tools, but I mean, this is an organization that I was blown away by when Ben and I started talking about this. So you were an advocate for a few years, really focusing on going after those who would perpetrate this black market and promote this black market. And then you met Mom Stop the Harm, reached out to you. Mm-hmm. And what an education and what a group of formidable individuals that suddenly got behind you. It must have felt very empowering to have an organization like this come to you and say, hey, let's link arms and let's go change something.
Well, and it was very educational because these were 3 women that had met in New York City at another drug conference. They'd all lost sons to poisonings. And they just said 2 of them lived in Edmonton and 1 on Pender Island. And they said, we really need to do something. Let's form this group. So I became a member of it, and it was a huge education for me because so much of what we believed was wrong.
Right.
It was myths. There was just myths we've been fed all. And
let's go through some of those right now. Because I mean, we've got an audience of people who have, many of them have grown up with Just Say No. I certainly remember when I was a kid, it was a huge campaign that went Saturday morning cartoons. Just Say No was everywhere.
Just say no to drugs.
Just say no to drugs.
And
and that was a huge thing. So what are some of these myths that, at that point you're educated, you had casualties.
Yeah.
You knew shit by that point, but yet at the same time.
I didn't know enough shit.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the things I learned very quickly is, we can't criminalize it. I couldn't go after the dealer. The dealer was probably in the same kind of trouble with his mental health and substance use as my son was. He was just trying to survive himself. So I had to, come around that whole thing. Criminalizing a health issue is stupid.
Okay. How long did it take you? Because you were staunch the other way. Let's go after those bastards, right? How long did it take for your mind, your heart to kind of wrap itself around that concept and make the 180 that you made?
Well, almost immediately, because my son could have been dealing drugs at some point in the time he was using to support his drug habit.
Right.
So how could I feel any differently for these people than I did for my own son, who I would have never wanted to hang or throw in jail or,
I have goosebumps as you're saying that.
Yeah. Loved him.
So empathy shows up.
Right.
Because you put your son in that person's shoes.
Right. And it's the same with, when I see somebody street entrenched or, downtown. We just drove up Leon and we see all those people. Those could have been my kids. And they all have mothers somewhere that are probably wondering where they are and how they are, and pray for them every night. And I don't see strangers. I see, my family and how it happens. Those could be anybody's child. And my kids came from an okay family. Like, there wasn't beatings going on at home, and there wasn't substance use in our house. And, it
wasn't stereotypical in any way.
They went to school, they played sports, they worked, they had owned cars, and they had a zillion friends, but they got into substance use. Yeah. Got into families that adored them.
Yeah.
And supported them, right? Both of them, right to the very last minute. So another myth.
Please.
Is let them hit rock bottom. Well, with this toxic drug market, rock bottom is dead. So I don't think that's such a great, it's like the just say no.
So let's explore that one for a second. I'm kicking my 21-year-old out of the house because we were setting up boundaries for this behavior, and they have to hit rock bottom before they'll make a decision, and it's up to them. Yep. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
And that's a myth.
Yep.
That's a bunch of bullshit.
Well, I'll tell you, it'll take that 21-year-old about 24 hours to figure out how to live on the streets.
Okay.
And how to get deeper into his mental health issues and his substance use disorder quicker. And now he's at high risk to die. So I feel really sorry for those parents, because when they get the phone call, they go, "Oh my God, we told him, we put him out on the street." And families have to have boundaries, and particularly when people aren't safe, and some people in substance use aren't safe to be around. So I'm not saying that. I'm not, and I don't want anybody to feel bad or feel guilty.
But that myth that some people will just hold up a sign about and get behind, and they will, they'll put all their chips on that one.
Yeah, that's a choice. It's a choice. If he wanted to get clean, he could get clean. Yes. It is not. It is not like that. My son, Tyler in particular, would have given anything if he could have rolled back time and never got addicted to those opiates. Yeah. He missed the man he once was. He fought to get him back, and it was impossible.
He missed the man he once was.
Yeah.
That is giving me chills.
Yeah.
So somebody who's in that case, what is the treatment? What is the alternative to letting them hit rock bottom? What is and I mean, I'm all for, by the way, I'm all for treatment versus punishment.
Yeah.
I'm a card carrying member. I love that concept so much more. I think any resources that we spend on punishing drug use and whatnot, if those resources were spent on treatment, I think we as a society would be in a much better, much more empathetic place. Just from a leadership perspective. So I'm a fan of that. But when you're in that situation and the people around you are saying, no, you got to let him hit rock bottom or you got to let him go. What's an alternative to that?
It almost makes me laugh because I had a big argument with the Suboxone doctor in town. I won't name names. I don't think that's fair, but and he told me to, I had to get tougher and he had to hit rock bottom, and I had to use tough love. And I said to him, tough love. I said, that's what this is. You're never going to find any tougher love than a mother trying to save her addicted child. So that tough love and that hit rock bottom is bullshit. Like connection. They need to be connected with more and more and more. They already hate themselves, loathe themselves, have broken their own moral and ethical code.
Yeah.
And they just abhor who they've become. They're doing a great job of beating themselves up. They need support and they need love and they need help and guidance. And that Tyler lived with us. He came in and gave me a great big hug the night before he died. And I went in and looked on him in the morning before I went to work. And I actually followed the fire truck home that was going to his overdose. And
his poisoning.
So his poisoning, yeah. So you need to connect with them. You have to help them. This is a medical issue.
Yes.
It's not a moral failing. So would we do that to somebody that had cancer? Well, you just choose to smoke and you got cancer. And so, we're not going to help you.
Yeah.
He goes to the hospital. He gets as much help as he needs.
Absolutely.
Substance use? Mm-mm. They don't look at it that way.
I love that analogy. I think it's one that people can really understand lung cancer sucks, and it sucks if you get lung cancer from smoking, but at the end of the day, you're getting treatment.
Yep.
And
turn you away.
And there are walks for it, and there are fundraisers for lung cancer, and yeah. So that is a really good way of describing that, because the symptom isn't that your lungs are failing you and you can't breathe anymore. With what you're talking about, it's just a different symptom. It's a symptom that's up here. It's a symptom that is in behavior. I'm so impressed with the way that you're able to describe this stuff. How's your family since this has all happened? I mean, I can imagine it must be really, really difficult on all involved.
My parents are still alive.
Yeah.
So they lost their two oldest grandchildren. And then they had to watch their daughter go through what I go through. And that is never over. My husband, who was not their father, their biological father, suffered a lot. He was the first one on the scene when Tyler died. So he's
as a fellow stepdad, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
So
here he is.
I can't even imagine.
I'm trying to save my wife's son, who he adored, but also knew what was going to happen to me, particularly after already losing Ryan. So, I think he's got some post-traumatic stress that he deals with on a regular basis. Tyler had two kids, and Mac and Talay were 6 and 12 at the time.
Yeah.
They're 12 and 17 now, and they are high risk for mental health and substance use. And I'm seeing that. My 12-year-old granddaughter, I wanted to take her to the beach yesterday, but she doesn't want to be seen in a bathing suit. And she was crying when she was telling me this. And this is part of the anxiety that she's grown up with the loss of her. All day Father's Day, she cried. It's not fair. I don't have a dad.
She's 12 now.
And she's 12.
Wow.
My 17-year-old he's suffered some anxiety and some post-traumatic stress. Tyler, on a really bad day, I think he was either in severe withdrawal or something had happened, hung himself from my balcony. And my grandson was 10 at the time. And he and I had to support Tyler's body weight till first responders came. So this 10-year-old lives with this memory in his head, and a lot of others, because there's a lot of trauma in substance use, living in a family. So I'm trying to save these two kids from, mental health and substance use. So some days I'm not bad. Some days I'm pretty good. Some days I don't get out of bed.
I imagine the sponge gets pretty dry on your sometimes. So it must be a really...
Nighttime is my time I talk to my kids, my boys. That's when I cry, because then nobody has to feel responsible for my sorrow. It's a never ending, child loss. You can't even explain it, and it doesn't go away. It's with you until you die. Yeah. So
it's a scar.
Yeah.
It's a scar.
Yeah.
I think about, I want to go into Mom Stop the Harm a little bit more here, and I want to go into some proactive, some solution type stuff. But I think about what we're doing here with HeChangedIt. And I think, the two first co-founders of this thing are both women. And we need more of the mother in our society, because at the end of the day, you got these two formidable women, one of them being my wife, who want to start this organization for men. Well, why? And part of it's because we got boys, that are going to be inheriting this earth, and we don't like the culture they're inheriting. They don't like what's going on. So we want to be a force for change. And I can't help but see the similarities between what they're trying to do here with HeChangedIt and what you're doing as an advocate, but from a bigger standpoint, what Mom Stop the Harm is doing. At the end of the day, we need a little bit more mother in the leadership of what our society is doing to send us in what direction we're going to end up going. And I think that this empathy that you're talking about and some of these things are a breath of fresh air that are much needed a long time ago. Never mind right now. It's crucial what you guys are doing. It's crucial what Mom Stop the Harm is doing. Tell us a little bit about where the organization is now. So because they kind of found you when they were sort of in their infancy. Yeah. They found you right away.
Well, we have 2,400 members now. Yeah. And we have a huge website. We have a huge following.
Okay. So it's momstoptheharm.
Yep.
It is .com? It is .com. Okay.
Yeah. And before I go there, when you're talking about boys, and 83% of poisonings or overdoses are men. And they're dying alone in their own homes. And women, we talk more, we share more. We're more open. We're more willing to break up and tell you what's going on. Men keep it all inside.
Go in the silo. And, we go in the cave.
Yeah,
and we stay there.
We're supposed to be the heroes here, and we can't share that. And it was the same with my boys when they were at their worst. It was very hard for them to share. So, I think this movement you have going is going to be incredible and will help so many men. And having a strong mother, I think, is really great, because we're the nurturers. We're the, I know husbands go to bed and go to sleep, and moms lie there and go, okay, so what's happening with the kids and what am I doing tomorrow? And, so, and those three women I met that were founders of Mom Stop the Harm had all lost sons. So they built this organization, and where we are now is we are probably the number one respected advocacy group in British Columbia. British Columbia has the most Six people die every day of a poisoning in BC.
And that's just in Western Canada, British Columbia.
It's British Columbia. 160 people died in the month of May in British Columbia. Wow. So we have most of our members are in BC. I think 900 of the 2,400 members are in British Columbia.
Yeah, significant percentage. Yeah.
So we're advocating for drug policy change. We want to see a safe supply, and we want to see decriminalization for personal use. And the reason we're after safe supply is until we supply safe medication to these people that need it and stop them from having to depend on a poison system, the deaths are going to keep going.
Right.
And a dead substance user will never recover. He needs a chance. He or she needs a chance to recover. We need to keep them alive while we build this system of recovery.
Yeah.
Which is treatment and prevention and awareness. And that's not going to happen overnight. It's going to cost a lot of money.
Yes.
Our problem with safe supply is I think our politicians think it's political suicide to come out and say, oh yeah, we are going to start giving people that use heroin free heroin.
Yeah.
Because we don't want them to die from fentanyl or carfentanil, or, now they're mixing benzodiazepines in with the drugs, which naloxone doesn't help. So we're doing all this advocacy work and challenging the drug rules. And we were really pro the Good Samaritan Act.
Yeah.
We've got members whose kids overdosed, and their friends, because they were so afraid of being arrested, they tossed them out of the car and left them on a gravel road instead of, going for naloxone. So
if you take away that fear, if that card goes off the table completely, then we have a completely new game board.
Yeah.
Are the pharmaceutical companies helping with this? I think about, and is that happening? Are they allies with this? You talk about how much money this is. I think about how profitable the pharmaceutical industry is. Isn't it similar to alcohol companies also having to, put PSAs out there saying, hey, don't drive drunk, that kind of a thing? Is it kind of do pharmaceutical companies take responsibility for this, or are they not involved in this conversation?
No. I can't say they're not involved.
And can we change that?
The one thing they're great with is providing naloxone.
Okay.
They'll provide the naloxone, and they'll provide the training.
Okay.
No, but they're still pumping out the meds.
And that's the thing.
That's never going to stop.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, cigarette companies have to put dire pictures on their product now of people's teeth or lungs or whatever. Is there not some sort of an equivalent in the pharmaceutical world?
There is a stronger lens on what doctors are prescribing and what pharmacists are filling.
Right.
And the pharmacists can override a prescriber saying, no, this isn't going to work. We've looked at Pharma.
Okay.
This guy is, So
systematic changes need to happen too then.
The doctors, so the pendulum was over here with Oxycontin.
Yeah.
And then we had all these deaths.
Yeah.
And then the pendulum swung over here. So people that...
Which ignited the black market.
Yeah.
Okay.
People that really needed painkillers legitimately, all of a sudden couldn't even get a T3,
Okay.
So they were driven to the black market.
Right.
So, and that's what human nature does. We can't just ever kind of stop.
Yeah, no, it swings too far every time, doesn't it?
Stop in the middle. Another thing Mom Stop the Harm has done, it's a new initiative we just started this year, it's called our Stronger Together Project.
Yeah.
So we got a grant from the government, the BC government, to create support groups, one called Healing Hearts. Healing Hearts supports families and people that have lost a loved one to drug harms. And then Holding Hope, which Ben is involved with. That's
where Ben Gerner is part of. Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
Is supporting those who still have a loved one in active drug use. So British Columbia started the Healing Hearts Holding Hope. And then Alberta got a SUAP grant. So they're starting these groups across Canada, Healing Heart and Holding Hope. So, we're trying to fill a gap because the death of our child to a drug harm is very different to the family that lost their son to a car accident or a drowning or those people, they get a lot more sympathy than we do.
Yes.
And
it's almost a dirty secret.
Yeah. They don't really want to talk about it. They don't know how to tell us they're sorry that our child died because they're kind of, well, he was using heroin.
I was just going to say, and I mean, I was going to finish it for you, but you're a warrior and you've got that thick skin, but you get people who are unsympathetic because, they fucking did it to themselves. And they almost in a adversarial kind of way sometimes can judge that type of behavior because of what's been built into our heads. And
some of them, even your good friends, they saw 5 years of hell we went through of, real hell.
Yeah.
And some of them probably thought, well, now it's over and she can move on. And that is not the case.
But that's the way they justify it in their head. Oh, well, everything's at peace now and everything's, and that's how they let it go.
They're all fine now.
And this is why we need more words.
Yeah.
Like they're tough words.
Yeah.
But this is why we need more words and groups like this that you're talking about, like Holding Hope. I mean, my God, that's what these people need. They need more words. They need people who are willing to link up. If their friends aren't willing to link up with them because it's a dirty little secret or they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to stay in the fire. They need people who are at least willing to stay in the fire with them. And the more people who are willing to do that, the more it can become part of the regular conversation. Am I on the right path with that?
Yeah. It's interesting, we've done some surveys and we've done some looking at this. People in our Healing Hearts group are not growing, or the people aren't as attentive as they are in Holding Hope because we've already lost. We're grieving.
Yes.
The fight's over. It's done. Now we're just trying to hold ourselves and our lives together.
Right.
The people in Holding Hope, they're still out there on the front lines trying to save their kid. They're at every meeting they have because maybe, just maybe, they're going to hear the right thing at one meeting. The right phrase, the right tactic, the right... Yep. Okay, this is something I haven't thought of. I'm going to try it and maybe I'll save my child.
This is big stuff. I hate that. I like I say to all of our guests, time gets slippery when we do this, and it starts to. So we got to start moving to the close. I know I hope this isn't our last conversation. By the way, I hope you're willing to come back and talk about this
anytime
as things advance, and we will do the same thing as things advance with us. I mean, we want to share resources. We want to put stuff into the HeChangedIt app talking about this. This is a huge issue. The numbers that you were giving are staggering, and we need to provide tools to lessen those numbers. I want to ask you one question before we get to Advocacy Day
Overdose Awareness Day.
Overdose Awareness Day is coming up. I want to talk about that. But before we do, I just want to know your take on, I think about countries like Uruguay. I think about Oregon, the state of Oregon right now, which has kind of decriminalized everything. Is this a path that you see even being a consideration in any North American government, whether it's a provincial, whether it's are there other states you're hearing about? Are people watching Oregon closely as this has happened nationally, federally in Canada? Are we talking about this at all? Is decriminalization something that actually could happen sooner than later?
Yeah, we're working on it. You see, the mayor in BC is talking about it all the time.
Yeah.
And just consider this. How much time, energy, and money we spend on going after that kid that bought a little cocaine because he's going to a party, and we arrest him. He's only got enough for his own personal use. He's not out to hurt anybody. He's not trafficking. We're not decriminalizing cocaine.
No.
We're just saying we're not going to spend all this money and time on this.
Right.
Kelowna is scheduled to add 50 new RSCMP members to its roster over the next couple of years.
Yeah. So we're adding more police.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. If we decriminalize and take that out of the works, I think RCMP officers make about 118,000 a year.
Yeah.
So that's quite a bit of money. Say maybe we only need 30 if we decriminalize, and we take that 118,000 per officer and we put it into prevention and awareness and treatment.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't that make more sense?
Yeah.
If you say to the taxpayer, if we decriminalize, it's going to cost you less money in your taxes.
Isn't it sad that you can't come out with the argument that we're going to save more lives and we're going to have a better society? You actually have to come out with a dollars and cents logical argument. And I think that's part of the problem right there.
What it will do to your wallet is more important than compassionately
and what it'll do to society.
What it'll do for humankind.
No, that's a bunch of bullshit. I don't believe in that. No. And I'm glad that we have said that, because even if one pair of ears hear that and consider that, perhaps we're one step closer to winning. And I completely agree with that. But from the logical standpoint, it also makes sense too. From a dollars and cents standpoint, it also makes sense too.
$12 you spend in harm reduction. For every dollar you spend in harm reduction, you will save $12 to our medical system.
Okay.
So
there it is right there.
Yeah.
Awareness for this is extremely important. There is a rallying point in the calendar where this awareness happens. It's in August of this year.
August 31st.
August 31st. And it's Overdose Awareness Day.
International
Overdose
celebrated,
Awareness Day.
Well, not celebrated. It's acknowledged or observed around the world.
Right.
The colors are purple around the world. So, yeah, it's an international event. All we do here in Kelowna, historically, since we got our proclamation, was we have some music, we have purple lights, we have tents with naloxone training, drug testing this year, the bridge, some of the treatment centers will be there, talking about.
That's cool. Other nonprofits. You're linking arms with other nonprofits.
All nonprofits talking about their programs. We do a part in Name Your Loved One. And the mic is open and people come up and name, whoever they've lost. And it's awful because some people get up and they say 5 names. Wow. So we have this evening and it's all about acknowledging all the lives that we've lost. And then around dusk, we gather around the sails, which are lit in purple. And we have a candlelight vigil. And it's a really sad
but powerful
powerful day. And we've met, both Arlene and I and Ben have met so many people through the years that didn't know that there was help out there and that they could talk about this and that it wasn't supposed to be a secret.
Yeah.
And so, it's it's a great awareness event.
Now, you've spoken locally about what we're doing. Apparently, we're going to be there this year. Apparently, HeChangedIt's going to be there, and which is cool. But this isn't just isolated to Kelowna. This is international.
Yeah, international.
Like, this podcast goes out to 16 different countries. Yep. And I mean, this Overdose Awareness Day, August 31st, people should know about it. And if there's something going on in their area, maybe they can be part of it. Maybe there's loved ones that can be given the awareness that needs to happen. And we can use this as a great tool, rallying point to find a solution for this unbelievably complex, heartbreaking problem that we have. Yeah.
A lot of connections are made at Overdose Awareness Day.
Speaking of connection, we have come to the end. If somebody has heard these words, if somebody is inspired by you, inspired by Mom Stop the Harm, inspired by any of this and wants to reach out, where's the best place for them to reach out? Either social media, do you directly interact, or is it just momstoptheharm.com? Where are some places that people can reach out to?
You can go to our website, momstoptheharm.com.
Yep.
You can call me. I take calls all the time. So
spell the name. Let's get you out there if they want to Google you and find you.
It's Helen Jennens, Jennens. And you'll Google me and you'll be able to find me. My phone number's in there somewhere.
I described you in the introduction today as a force of nature, and I think you have shown just even a little sliver as to why I would use that. I just want to say thank you very much for trying to make our world a better place. Thank you for being part of a solution, because someone in your situation, I think most of the world would absolutely say, yeah, if they just wanted to kind of focus on that problem for the rest of their lives, they could kind of do that and kind of go back into their cave. You have certainly done the opposite of that. You have gone right up to the forefront and taken a horrible situation and tried to use it to change the world. And I just want to say thank you very, very much. We at HeChangedIt are blown away with what you and what Mom Stop the Harm are doing. So thank you very much, Helen, for being part of a solution here.
Well, thanks for having me. And every little bit you guys do also helps us. So I think if we all work together, we can maybe make a change.
Let's link arms and do that.
Okay. They
go by so quick. Yeah, my favorite time of the week is when we start these things. One of the worst times of the week is when we finish them. The good news is we've got lots more HeCast coming up. We've got a whole docket of guests that are coming up. Thank you for everybody who has supported the HeChangedIt project and HeCast up to this point. Again, if you haven't downloaded the app, download it, share the podcast, subscribe. Thank you so much for everything. My name is Mike Chisholm. I am the host of HeCast, the official podcast of HeChangedIt. Go change something.